joining our revision session. My name is Anne. I'm going to be your tutor for this session. It's Personal Tax. We're looking at Finance Act 2024, and today it's going to be the turn of task number 5. Task 5 covers national insurance contributions. So I'm going to flick to our task here. It's FI mock number 1 if you're following through from the FI course materials. Otherwise, you'll find it in our revision question bank. So this task is 6 marks. It's 9 minutes. If we look at how long you have to complete it, it is a relatively short task, and it's going to involve calculating national insurance payable by the employee and the employer. I think the main thing that I can give you as a preamble to this task is the reference material is going to help you out here. There is a section in the reference material, section 13, which gives you the different rates that you're going to need for the calculations as we make our way through this one. So we'll be referring to this reference material as we go. Turning to the task then, here is the task that we're going to be working through, and it is Ben. Ben received a gross salary of £50,500 and taxable benefits of £16,250. None of these were convertible into cash. We have to work out how much Class 1 national insurance is payable by Ben for 24-25. So what we should know then here is that when we are dealing with Class 1 national insurance, that's going to be the national insurance payable on our salary. It's not payable on benefits unless they are convertible into cash. So we're not going to pay Class 1 national insurance on that £16,250. We will, however, pay Class 1A national insurance on those, but that comes later. Let's work out the Class 1 national insurance payable by Ben then. Notice how in part 2 it asks for the Class 1 national insurance payable by Ben's employer. So we're starting with Ben, we'll move on to his employer. Okay, so let's get the reference material open perhaps and see what the limits are. So for an employee, below 12,570, we pay 0. Anything between 12,570 and 50,270 is at 8%, and over that top threshold of 5270 is then at 2%. So that's what we're going to be doing here. I'm going to put a little working on the bottom so you have something to follow along with. So we're basically saying the first 12,570 is at 0%. That's going to be 0. Then we have the difference in that middle band, the difference between 50,270 and the 12,570 from here. The difference there is going to be 37,700. And that little section is all going to be payable at 8%. And because Ben's earnings actually fall into that higher bracket, we need to see how much is in the higher bracket as well. It earns £50,500 altogether. So we're now looking at 50,500 compared with the 50,270. That comes out at £230, and that part is going to be at 2%. So now it's a case of working through the calculations. You've worked out how much of his salary falls into each of these bandings. So we just need to work out the national insurance that will be payable. We've got to use whole pounds, and we need to ignore the employment allowance. It's only really relevant when we do the employer's contribution anyway, but because that actually comes out at £4.60. Me £3,020.60, but I've got to present my answer in whole pounds, so I'm going to round it up to 3,021. And that's worth 2 marks. So I always find the mark allocations in this part of the question, I think, are reasonably generous because that working doesn't take so long. Compared with, for example, a question dealing with benefits in kind, where we might have the use of a projector and then 2 years later we then buy the projector, and we have a lot to think about there, also for 2 marks. This, for me, is actually quite nice. The employer's contribution in part 2. Skip to your reference material. See what's going on here. So for the employer, the rules are different because the first 9,100 has no national insurance, and then above that it's 13.8. So we've got 0 on the first part. We know that his earnings are 50,500. So anything from 9,100 up to 50,500 will then be at the, what did it say, 13.8%. So 571320 to the nearest pound, 5713. And that's the employer's national insurance done. So do make sure you practice these. I do think that these are some really nice marks in here. It would be a shame to lose them just because you have misunderstood or misread something. So take your time. You have got time to get this done in the assessment. Just make sure you check your workings, maybe work the calculations twice just to be sure. And then class 1A, probably the easiest of all, because there is no 0% band. Class 1A is the national insurance on the benefits in kind, the ones that are not convertible into cash, and it's a flat 13.8 on everything. So we'd need to find the benefits in kind figure, taxable benefits, of course. So 16,250 of taxable benefits, the whole lot at 13.8%. So 224250, rounded to the nearest pound, 2243. So very short task compared with some of the others. I think it is worth taking your time on this one and making sure that you do work through the figures twice, because in my opinion there are some quite nice marks in there. You just need to read the questions carefully and check that you are using the reference material to pick out those rates.